Will says there are over 20 named characters who can join your crew. Hey guys, Dantix here, back with some huge Starfield information. I'm so pumped for this game. Today, the lead quest designer Will Shen and the lead designer Emil jumped into Discord and answered your top burning questions about Starfield. We have a ton of information to cover, including buying properties, our parents, creating characters, smuggling, the jail system, pacifist mode, religion, and over 20 named companions, wages, quests, control alien beasts, and so much more. The competition to win a copy of the game or a 3080 is coming to a close soon, so be sure to like, comment, and sub. Alright, let's begin. Can we buy houses or property in main cities? Will Shen says, yep, there is housing in different cities that players can get. Some you have to purchase and some are rewards for specific quests. Emil says, sure can, you can purchase a dwelling in all major cities of the game, and there's at least one you can get specifically for completing something. Like suspected, the game will let you have a place to decorate, store items, and rest your weary bones without forcing you into settlement building. We've come to expect this in a Bethesda Studios game. I also suspect that completing the UC Vanguard and the Freestar Rangers questline will grant you citizenship and therefore access to a sweet property in town, as been hinted. If this is the case, then quests on Neon and in other faction lines will do the same in their respective areas, including the Crimson Fleet space station. If we get the kid stuff trait, will our parents be generated based on our character's look, or are there standard parents put in place? What benefits might there be? Will says, our programmers on our new face tech were excited to make a function that could try to match your custom face and then create two parents. So they're based on what your character looks like, though the specific math involved is a bit beyond me. We had similar tech in our previous games. Emil says, yes, totally. Just as we did in Fallout 3 with your dad and Fallout 4 with your son, in Starfield, if you take the kids stuff trait, your parents are based off of you. No spoilers, but I think fans will really appreciate the actors we got to play those roles, and they just get so into it. It's awesome. Oh, and yeah, you can get stuff. So this feature may have seemed obvious to Bethesda fans because, like mentioned, they've done this sort of thing before. What is good to know, however, is that you get stuff for picking the trait. I mean, it costs you money to have parents, so we hope there would be a payoff besides more content. For those of us who have never played a BGS game and will be starting with Starfield, what information should we know to make the experience more impactful right from the start? How deep should we go into creating our character's backstory before we start the game? Emil says, we will always make our games for both fans old and new, so you can jump in without ever playing a Bethesda title before. Will says, while we do start you off at the same spot, what happened to you before the game starts is totally up to you and your head canon. Emil says, but we like to look at it less as playing a game and more about living in the universe we created. So settle in, go at your own pace, and pretty soon you'll learn all the systems and be adventuring through these settled systems the way you choose. Will says, there is a trait and background system that will let you specify more about yourself, but you can also select an anonymous background and no traits if you want. In terms of if you've never played a BGS game before, try anything. We're a simulation as well as a role-playing game, so we try to support the player doing what they want as much as they can. Emil says, as for going into the character's backstory, that's entirely up to you. I'm all about that head canon. For example, my latest character is a working schlub named Mitch Dombrowski. He's a husky, good-natured space trucker, and while he'll do whatever it needs to defend himself, he'll never shoot first. He's like Han Solo's sweeter older brother, and yes, there are traits and backgrounds that support that kind of thing. So the leak saying you start in different locations was incorrect. It's confirmed by Will that you start off in the same spot, even though something he mentioned in another interview was misunderstood. So it seems besides the character choice, which will impact dialogue and give you some starting skills, there isn't much else to build out your backstory, though you can pick a custom template and it's unclear if that means you can choose your starting skills. But your character will be a sort of blank slate at the start that begins their real journey when you do. How will the smuggling cargo system work? Can we hide it somewhere on the ship and sell it for more currency later? Will says certain items are considered contraband and you'll need to smuggle them past security ships that are in orbit in major settlements. Emil says there are specific items that are considered contraband, meaning they're pretty much illegal everywhere, and yes, you can hide them using special ship modules you can purchase, so don't get caught with those harvested organs. The economy is fixed, but prices of bought and sold goods can change based on the skills you choose. There's a lot to unpack here. First, we've seen that your ships get scanned for contraband upon entering a settled system. Now we know you can smuggle items in special modules. Most likely the better quality, the more effective. Not sure if it was a joke, but contraband may or may not include harvested organs. The economy is set, meaning that in different locations or at different times, the cost of things won't change. However, as we've come to expect, the rank of your specific economy-based skills will impact the price of bought and sold goods. So yes, if you plan on being a smuggler, getting skills that give you a better price for selling your smuggled goods will be the way to go, as you'll need a payoff for the risk involved, also a payoff to buy better ships able to smuggle for you. Will there be a jail system if we commit crimes? Will says, yes, you can elect to go to jail or pay a fine when you're arrested, or even resist arrest and try to escape. Emil says, yep, the settled system is more like Skyrim than Fallout 4's Commonwealth in that regard. Yeah, bunch of criminals. There's a civilization, there's a government, and there are laws. And in a couple of cases, we actually explore the themes of crime and punishment in our futuristic universe. So nothing new here. You commit a crime, you get approached by a guard and told to come quietly, go to jail, pay a fine, or no doubt some other options with some specific skills. If you don't comply, they'll open fire. We don't know how tough guards will be, but if it's anything like their last games, there'll be a big enough challenge that you'll want to avoid getting caught when undertaking your shady business, or quick save and quick load when experimenting with murder. Will time pass when not in the game? For example, will my trade routes, outposts, and mining operations continue to produce, or does that only occur while actively playing? Emil says, the sim only runs when you're actively playing, no sleeping on the job. Will says, only when actively playing. So no, this isn't like Fallout 76, as Starfield is a single player game. I'm glad you don't miss content. Imagine coming back after a week and you've got more credits than you know what to do with, but all your companions are dead after a raid on your colony that you weren't there for. Can you be a double agent in the game? For example, if you join the United Colonies, can you also join the Crimson Fleet and give the United Colonies information, and what factions have that feature if they do? Will says, all of the playable factions can be completed independently. Emil says, that's exactly what you can do. Infiltrate the Crimson Fleet for the UC Cis Def. It's specific to that questline. Will says the Crimson Fleet storyline does feature you being an undercover agent inside the fleet on behalf of the UC Cis Def, a military branch of the United Colonies. But whether you betray the fleet or the UC is a choice you will get to make. Emil says, in the studio, I've been half-jokingly accused of referencing movies that some folks have never seen because I'm old. So with this particular plotline, the inspiration was very much the movie Donnie Brasco, which is a true story of an FBI agent who infiltrates the mafia. How far will you go? Both these answers we've received before. You can play all of the factions independently, so you won't be locked out of missions per se for undertaking others. We suspected the UC Vanguard would be the ones infiltrating the Crimson Fleet, but now we know it's another division, the UC Cis Def. So the Vanguard and the Cis Def could possibly be different faction lines. Making the choice to betray one or the other faction will be an interesting one when it comes to the Crimson Fleet, but it's unclear if this is the start of the Crimson Fleet's line or if they'll have their own. Depending on traits selected during character creation, will it at all be possible to play through the game in a pacifist mode, i.e. without killing anyone, or even potentially anything? Will says, I can't guarantee every mission can be completed in pacifist mode, but we do have a couple of systems that will help. Emil says, so we've talked about this very early on during pre-production, whether or not we would fully support a non-lethal playthrough. We realized that for various reasons, that wasn't totally feasible. Will says, one system is our speech challenge game, where you can persuade someone to do something like not fight you. Emil says, now that being said, there are some good non-lethal options, whether through dialogue or by using a non-lethal weapon. Those can be used in certain situations, honestly a lot of situations. I couldn't comfortably say you can complete the entire game without killing whatsoever. The settled systems is mostly civilized, but it can be a dangerous place if you're going off the beaten path, and you're absolutely going off the beaten path. Will says, the speech challenge game is added in specific scripted moments, and we try to add one in most quests where important characters confront you. So the answer is no. This isn't like some other games where you can get by without firing a shot. In the end, you're going to need to defend yourself, and simply saying you're putting your phasers to stun isn't going to cut it. You can avoid a lot of fights with Bethesda systems like sneak, lockpicking, and speech challenges. It does seem though like the speech system is a more in-depth version than it's ever been, with its own minigame challenge where you're trying to persuade someone by picking options of increasing effectiveness but more challenge, requiring a higher skill. The real question should have been, can you kill absolutely everyone like you can in the Outer Worlds? The answer to that is no as well though, I'm afraid. What are the beliefs and basic history of the religions we can join? Sanctum Universum, Enlightened, and Great Serpent. Emil says, existing in real life religions are part of the Starfield universe, with folks of all religions and denominations out there, but we don't really focus on them. Instead, we highlight 3 new ones specific to the game. Will says, the Sanctum Universum is only a couple decades old in our timeline, but has gained a lot of prominence. They believe that God is out there, somewhere in the universe, and that humanity's ability to travel the stars brings us closer to God. Emil says, Sanctum Universum, the members, called the Universals, believe that God very much exists somewhere in the universe, that a higher power is guiding us all. Specifically, they believe that humanity's ability to travel the universe and grav jump is God's way of saying, I'm out here, come find me. Will says, the Enlightened are an atheist group that focus on humanitarian and community work. They believe that life is something every person has to take responsibility for, so that if we want the world to be a better place, we have to do it. Emil says, the Enlightened, these folks are essentially organized atheists. They don't believe in any kind of higher power. Rather, they teach human beings how to take care of each other, and they practice what they preach through various community outreach programs. House Varun, oh boy. So in the game, you're not really sure what the complete truth is, but the gossip among the guards is that a colony ship sets off for a new world, making grav jumps along the way. After one of the grav jumps, one of the passengers claims he spent time communing with a celestial entity known as the Great Serpent. What was a few seconds for everyone else was much longer for him, and he brought back a mandate, which is basically get on board or be devoured when the Great Serpent encircles the universe. Is it true? I ain't saying. So in game, you sometimes face off against House Varun Zealots as an enemy group, and that's their motivation. I recently got the House Varun logo tattooed on my wrist, so yeah, I dig them. The devs say that they don't focus on the real life religions, but they're there. I think this is just housekeeping to avoid particular fanatics losing the plot because their belief isn't mentioned. I suspect that the in-game religions will be the only ones actually mentioned. I like the idea that one religion is encouraging space travel and exploration. The Sanctum Universum is similar to the episode of Futurama where Bender finds God in space and Fry looks for him using a giant telescope. The Enlightened are atheists, ironically, that believe we've got to put in the work ourselves because there is no higher power. It's funny that atheism sits in the bucket of religion, but it seems that if you choose to be part of this religion as a trait, you get a special chest full of rewards, so really, it's the religious option for those who don't want to be religious, but still want the conversational and physical rewards of being religious. Like we suspected, House Varun is a cult, and they're the most interesting to me out of the 3 religions. Their beliefs are based on one nut's hallucinations, but hey, maybe you're trying to convince the universe of what you hallucinated when you touched the artifact, so maybe we can't judge. There really could be a giant space serpent. How many companions total will we be able to recruit? Will says, there are over 20 named characters who can join your crew. Emil says, over 20 total, and we really focused on the members of Constellation. Will says 4 of them are from Constellation and have the most story and interaction with the player, but all of the named characters have their own backgrounds and can follow you around and carry your stuff. Emil says, when we first began Starfield pre-production, we looked back at our previous games and realized how popular and effective companions were. So they were a big priority for us and we really wanted to tie them directly to the main quest. There are some really big moments with them specifically. I should also mention that our companion's voice cast is amazing. We haven't released the list yet, but you can be sure there are a lot of talented actors bringing those characters to life, same for Constellation in general. It's amazing to hear that there are over 20 named characters who can join your crew. I was worried there'd only be a small handful at Constellation. It does seem like 4 Constellation members will be the focus, with a lot more story and interactions, but at least the others get backstory skills and functionality. I suspect based on previous interviews that these Constellation members are the only ones you can have a real romance with. I'm glad they focused on companions and gave them big story moments. It seems like you probably shouldn't play the Lone Wolf style for the first playthrough if you really want to experience as much of the game as it has to offer up front. When we assign crew members to work at outposts, do we have to pay them salaries? Emil says, you just pay them once. We actually experimented with paying them regular salaries, but ultimately decided to just have the one up cost front. Will says, yep, one-time payment that you can use the speech challenge game to negotiate over. Some traits also affect the cost. Emil says, there's a lot to do in Starfield and we want to minimize what the player had to constantly keep track of. This makes sense. An ongoing fee will turn Starfield into a city sim with wages and taxes and... wait, this actually might be a good idea for a mod. But yes, there will be a once-off fee to get them to our outpost, so if you really hate a character, negotiate them down low and put them alone on some hellscape planet with only a tiny hab to live in. Yes, you can be evil. Will our companions be able to level up their perks? Will their perks stack with ours? Will says all crew start off with a set of perks at specific ranks. Emil says they don't level up, but they come at different ranks depending on the companion. Will says, so you might meet a character that's especially good at rifles and you hire them to watch your back. Or you might meet a astrodynamics expert which will increase your grav jump range when assigned to your ship. Emil says, well, we call them skills in Starfield and they do stack with yours when relevant. Some are there for flavor to highlight the companion's background and interests, but you'll really feel the benefit of the ship and combat related ones. Getting a boost to your shields or seeing your companion laying down fire with a weapon they're proficient in are pretty sweet moments. So it's confirmed that companion skills will help you like we suspect. Astrodynamics extends your ship's jump range beyond what your skill provides. As Emil says, it will stack when relevant. So finding good companions for your ship and good companions to watch your back with weapons seems like the smart thing, though it feels like I'll just be taking my space wife Sarah Morgan with me everywhere to hear her thoughts and feedback. Emil mentions that crew don't level up their skills, but doesn't say that crew don't level up, so we still don't know how that works, but no doubt they'll get more health. It's also mentioned that some skills are just there for flavor, meaning that some might simply not provide any benefit. What are your favorite parts of the game? Will says, I love finding content that I haven't seen yet or forgot about. Our games are so big that no one person is likely to have seen it all, even after all our passes and levels of review. Emil says, because of my position, my experience is a little different than yours. I won't speak for Will, but personally, I've seen every questline, every city, every major piece of content in the game at every stage of development. So my answer is colored by that. For me, the real pressure is seeing how they've evolved into the versions they are today. The versions everyone here will play. I have a real soft spot for Neon. Getting that city nailed down took a lot of work by a lot of different people, and the result is really the cyberpunk settlement I've always hoped it would be. I also love all the quest lines. I think they're the best we've ever done. The designers on this project totally killed it. Our quests really evolve over development and it's great to see how everyone adds to them. Designers, animators, voice actors, lighting, everything. So this isn't a question I'd ask simply because, like Emil says, their experience will differ from ours and we don't want to go into the game with those expectations set, though Neon being a great area isn't something unexpected. It's the dark, gritty, shady areas that will invoke the most creativity. What books or movies had a big influence on some of the quests? Will says, I'm a history nerd, so I actually listen to a lot of podcasts like Hardcore History and The History of Rome. Emil says, well, I'm a child of the late 70s, early 80s, and have very fond memories of the sci-fi of that time, so let me think. Will says, while our game is science fiction, I like how historians can tell you about how human beings react to extreme circumstances, like war, famine, and technological breakthroughs. And you can imagine how we'd react to similar circumstances in a fictional setting, just at a grander scale. Emil says Star Wars, OG Battlestar Galactica, Space 1999, Buck Rogers, Battle Beyond the Stars, Ice Pirates, and let's not forget the classic that is Metal Storm, The Destruction of Jared Sin. I think I actually saw that one in 3D, but also much headier sci-fi stuff like the writings of Arthur C. Clarke and Robert Heinlein, or films like Contact, Interstellar, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and even Event Horizon. What are some favorite small details in Starfield to add to the immersion? Emil says, I think what I really love is that although humans are living in space and our aesthetic is very much NASA punk, this is a very lived in universe and you can see it everywhere. Will says, I really look closely to all our outfits. You can see seams, materials, especially on the spacesuits. Constellation members have patches on their spacesuits and they're tied to what skills they have. Emil says, you know, everyone loves sandwiches, but it's the books that are lying around, the notes on bulletin boards, the environmental storytelling that our level designers and world artists are so good at. Will says, we also love buttons. There's a lot of buttons. Emil says, totally love the work from our voice actors too, and the music and the sound effects and the clothes, lol buttons. We do love our buttons. Oh, and I do want to mention this. If you haven't heard about it, Adam Savage and the team are building a film model of the Frontier, and that ship, man, all of the ships, the level of detail is insane. What is the history of the Mechs? Emil says, ooh, the Mechs, good one. We show this a bit in the animated shorts. The Mechs are leftovers from the colony wars. No, it's colony war and not colony wars, singular. Both sides, the United Colonies and Freestar Collective, had Mechs, but the Freestar Collective really mastered them. The United Colonies had Mechs too, but they also relied on controlled alien beasts from their Xeno Warfare division. Both of these were outlawed with the amnesty that ended the colony war. I'm not saying there's an old Mech battleground in the game, I'm typing it. You had me at Xeno Warfare. We saw in the Starfield direct you can control beasts with a particular skill, so it will be something you can use in combat, an outlawed tactic. However, it has been confirmed that there won't be ground-based vehicles we can ride in, so no, we won't be getting Mechs, at least not without mods. It seems though that we'll be experiencing the scars of the colony war, and like we saw visual hints at, we'll be able to visit an old Mech battleground. So that's everything. What do you think, guys? More or less excited for Starfield? Let me know below. Like always, be sure to do the typical YouTube stuff. It really helps me out. Also, it'll put you in the running to win a copy of Starfield or a 3080 graphics card. Best of luck. Ciao, friends.